The DC Comics miniseries called Salvation Run has the United States government capture pretty much every supervillain in the DC universe and teleport them to an alien world they could conquer and rule for themselves. Little does the US government know, this world is actually a dangerous training ground for parademons from Apokolips. There's a lot of potential with this idea, but unfortunately it wasn't fully realized. Part of the problem was a change in creative team due to Bill Willingham falling ill, but I'm not sure if this story would have worked if there was a consistent creative team. But as disappointed as I was with this story, I think there's some ways it could have been improved. During this time when all the known and established supervillains are missing in action, this could have been a great opportunity for creators on the other books to introduce new supervillains that the government didn't send to this alien world. This story would have felt weightier if the missing supervillains actually impacted the other DC titles. My main complaint was that this story involves the supervillains falling into two camps. Lex Luthor says he can get everyone back home, while Joker doesn't want to listen to anyone and sets up his own camp where everyone serves him. The actual conflict between these two isn't established until issue 3 out of 7. The first two issues just show various supervillains in danger on an unknown world. We don't need that much setup. It's possible Willingham didn't plan on taking the series in this direction, but this is what we got, and what we got was mishandled. If this had been a longer story, you could have done a slow burn, but to wait until almost halfway through the miniseries to set up these conflicting ideologies is poor form. But this conflict between these two doesn't make much sense. Joker isn't much of a follower, so him resisting following orders makes sense, but he clearly wants to get back to Earth, so him inciting riots, attacking Lex's camp, then yelling at Lex to get back to work, finding a way to get them all home, it's counterintuitive. You might say, Joker's crazy, it makes sense for him to do stuff that doesn't make sense, but even someone as unhinged as Joker would be able to put his priorities together. If you want to get back home, you gotta let these guys do what they're doing. Or if you don't want anyone to get back home because you are the embodiment of chaos, keep sowing seeds of dissent and try to dismantle what Lex is doing. But why does it have to be Joker as Lex's opposite number? The higher-ups probably wanted it to be him because he's DC's most popular bad guy, but it makes no sense for him to oppose Lex's efforts to get everyone home. What if there was some other bad guy who fights Lex on this and wants to build something new on this world? Someone like Vandal Savage. While Joker and Lex were up to their antics, Savage had a few lady supervillains convinced they could build their own utopia in a safe zone. He had help from Phobia, a mind controller type, in convincing them to be part of his harem. Gross and abusive, but it makes sense coming from an immortal caveman who isn't that progressive when it comes to women's rights. What if Savage is tired of life on Earth? Modern technology makes it difficult for him to rebuild another empire like he's done in the past, but this lush, empty planet would be the perfect place for him to establish himself as emperor, and the ladies can be his harem, and the dudes can be his labor force. If only Luthor's plans to take everyone back home weren't getting in the way. If Lex succeeds, anyone Savage convinces to be part of his New World Order would want to go back home. Even Phobia would have no reason to help Savage, and everything he wants would fall apart. This would make much more sense than the Joker-Lex rivalry that went nowhere, as everyone put their differences aside at the end of the miniseries and went home. If it was me, I would not have all the villains go home at the end. Status quo does not have to be restored. Vandal Savage and his followers should be stranded on this world if their war with Lex is serious enough. There would be no reason for Lex to let them go home with no ramifications for defying his attempts to save them. Eventually, they could find a way back home, but let's have some fun with this premise. If you want to revisit this world to see what Savage is up to with his attempt at creating a new empire, maybe Adam Strange or Lobo winds up there during one of their space forays. So this would have made Salvation Run just a little better in my opinion. You probably don't care about this comic book from 14 years ago, but after I reread it, I could not get these ideas out of my mind. So here it is in your mind too. In any case, I'll be back next week for a different video. Until then, have a good one.